So welcome to the UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup from Hulst in the Netherlands, the men's elite race. Our riders are now converging on the course and on towards the start line after a great race already. The course drying in the 13 degrees C temperature, the wind 31 kilometers an hour, so quite breezy, but helping to dry the course out, which is all based around the ramparts and ditches around the banks and fortifications of this historic Flanders town, the most Flemish of the Netherlands towns, and only a few kilometers from the border. Now the World Cup standings at this the round of the World Cup. Ellie Isabit currently leading the standings from Michael Van Turnhout. Van Turnhout riding so strong, and great to see him riding back to his best, currently in second place. But we have to say Tunet's looking very, very strong yesterday. This the end of the Christmas period, and that makes a huge difference to riders like Lars van der Haar, who's been racing consistently all the way from Dendermonde right the way through, and with a packed list with races like Lowenhout as well as Baal yesterday, takes its effect on the riders. Strong Netherlands and Belgian contingent, as you would expect, and we have to say that riders that you need to watch out for, well, other than of course the one and only Wout van Aert. Notable absentees are in the shape of Matthew van der Poel. Van der Poel not taking it to the start line despite being an entry, and it does mean that of the so-called big three of Wout van Aert, Matthew van der Poel and Tom Pidcock, it is Pidcock along with Van Aert who are going to be down on the start line, with Matthew van der Poel unfortunately now sidelined potentially for the rest of the season. Big contingent of stateside riders joining the start line, the Czech Republic as well as Spain, Switzerland, France, all represented here.
What did you learn from yesterday's race?
That Wout can win even if he starts 30 seconds behind us. So maybe we can try that today. But yeah, he's really strong. He's really strong, and Pidcock is really strong as well. I think this will be a race or a track that's more for Pidcock and me. So maybe we can, and Michael van Turnhout as well. Maybe we can make it more difficult for Wout today. But I don't think that's really possible.
No, but I think you're happy that you were close to them. Yes.
Yeah, very happy. After some difficult weeks, it's very good to race in front again. So I hope today I find a good legs as well, and then maybe we can start a good 2022.
What about the off-camber today? You can deal with it, turning and climbing all day long.
Yeah, normally I'm pretty good here with the twists and turns. I've changed it a little bit, but it's still very much the Hulst course of before.
Did you recover well from yesterday's race, because you had to dig deep to take the win?
I hope so. I had a good sleep, and this morning I did a little spin to warm up again, and actually it felt good. But it's all also in the race. You have to wait how the feeling is. Luckily, I think my biggest opponents all raced yesterday, so that will mean everybody has the same fatigue.
Did you train on pit stops?
No, not really, but. Yeah, luckily in cross you do it all the time, every week. So yeah, you get used to it. And actually, it was my first time I had to change a shoe in the race, and also this went well.
Well, great to hear from those three riders. Ellie Isabit, the World Cup leader, and interesting to say he was very much the opinion that maybe Wout needs to start with 36, maybe a minute behind, and he still win. Definitely the man on form, and currently the rider for everybody to beat. We saw Tom Pidcock there, the rider who was in that battle racing against Wout van Aert, very, very strong, and a rider with a history here at Hulst of riding strongly and racing up at the very front of the race. And again, another rider who we know has been training specifically to try and be able to race 2 days in a row. And Wout van Aert, a rider who had to do a shoe change, and we saw him having to run over the hurdles rather than bunny hopping at Baal yesterday, which cost him a lot of time. And despite that, despite that setback, making his way up to the front of the race. Now, our riders starting to assemble as we see Lars van der Haar moving up on to the start line here. Lars van der Haar currently sitting in 5th place in the World Cup standings, as a European champion. He's followed to the line by Quinten Hermans, who's having a great season this season. Good to see Quinten Hermans back to his best, and he moves to the side, lining up alongside Lawrence Veek, a rider who was on the podium in Koksijde. Now, Toonat's one of the big riders who could figure if it was muddy and tough today. The big hills, the big banks, maybe not suiting his strengths, but he rode really well the last few times out. Whether he's got the skills and the speed to match Michael van Toornaert, who has shown he can climb with the best. He's got the skills, definitely. Will he be the rider to beat? Certainly a rider who has been named before the race today by lots of the riders as being potentially the man to challenge Wout van Aert. And he is a bit, well, his World Cup standings, he has currently got a great record in the World Cup so far this year with 5 wins, 3 second places and the 3rd place. In fact, being on the podium at 9 of the rounds. 9 riders actually making the podium, and of those 8 are here. No Matthew van der Poel because of that injury. So Hulst sitting on the edge of the Schelde River, defended Antwerp, the port out to the right that you can just see, and it's those defences that were built in the 17th century that the course uses. We're back here after last year heading out into the Perk Polder, and the steep banks are what makes this climb and the course so special, as well as the descents and the cambers. Consistent cambers, they don't vary all that much because of the man-made nature. The big descent down here causing 1 or 2 issues with the twists and turns in earlier races. We're going to see how that changes as we get more riders on here once again. The big climbs up, though, are what generally takes a toll, but mistakes being made all over the place. So big descent down here, 2 or 3 different lines, so there's potential for a clash on the way through at this course. Definitely one which rewards those people who can keep it smooth, who can keep the power down even when it's slightly slippery on the bottom, and can run a very big bank. It's absolutely huge, as we're going to see very shortly. Now we're into that final countdown. Our riders are lined up on the start line and just being prepped. So Toon van den Bosch on the front row of the grid, currently sitting 7th place in the series standings, and focusing on this, doing a great run. Good to see him right up in the top 8. The European champion, Lars van der Haar, and coming back into his best form. A rider who maybe would want something slightly more technical, nursing that knee, but we will see, I think, Lars in the mix. So our next rider, Colin van Kessel, the Tormans team. Colin van Kessel currently sitting in 6th place in the series standings and right in the mix alongside Toon. That's Toon, a rider very, very strong, very quick, can challenge to the best. Is it his style of course? Personally, I don't think so, but you can never discount him. This man, though, could spring a surprise for some, because Michael van Toornaert, definitely one of the riders who has had one of his best seasons to date, taking that first win as well. Emotional time on the podium. This is the man they all want to be after his great start, and he is a bit on the defensive a little bit from Van Toornaert as Quinten Hermans lines up alongside him. The teammate there of Colin van Kessel, and then Lawrence Veek, who has not really figured as much as we maybe would have expected, with 1 second place so far in the UCI World Cup. We've got 2 more rounds to go after this one. This is going to be critical for the riders' standings in the series overall. Plus, of course, they all want to beat that man, Wout van Aert, on the right-hand side of your screen in the Belgian jersey. About 2 riders in from the right-hand side of the barrier, starting on the 2nd row of the grid today. Moving his way up that grid, as is Pidcock, almost centre screen. But this is all about getting safely off from that start line. You can just see big kick from the start, and it looks to me like it's going to be the inside line that is going to be best as they come around, taking that inside turn on the way around. Van der Bosch just leading through, but then quickly being overtaken as they came around that turn by Lars van der Haar, missing out the hurdles of this time round on the first of the start laps. Every time After this, we will come round and over those hurdles on the way out from that start. And we do expect to see pretty much all the riders put any help in those unless they have an issue like we saw with Wout van Aert last time out. Now, quick start by his feet. Looks like Van Aert already up into the top 5 there. It's just a little bit further down than we'd maybe expect, down about 9th or 10th place there, as these riders come streaming through. But it is the European champion who had a good ride yesterday at Palawater, and looks like that's an issue for at least one of the Tormans riders. That tight right-hand turn where she's pretty congested. Seen at least one of the Tormans riders coming down there. I think that was likely to be Van Kessel. We'll get so a better idea very shortly. You see absolute carnage in the field behind. Looks like Gus are just going over the top. Gus van der Mid just in the bomb tracks kit, just jumping up over the top of the riders and leading the charge away from that. And problems for Wout van Aert. No, big issues here. He moves up out of the way of the riders. Very gentlemanly thing to do, not forcing them out of the line. That is a change. I mean, look at the force he's having to use. He's managed to rip it free now. Gets it on the bottom of that chain where he's got to flip it round. So coming up onto the bank, the bounce, that little bit of a flick took him out. And it does mean that you just see rider after rider passing him well. They wanted a 30-second advantage. They're going to get at least 30 seconds from Wout van Aert now to give him a little bit of a chance. And Wout just dropping in behind our Canadian rider there, and that is going to be behind Matt Lieveld. So you can just see that race lead now being held by Lars van der Haar. Let's see if we can get a time gap back now to Wout van Aert, who was hotly fancied on the way through. Everybody said he's a man you've got to beat. He's going to take some doing. Well, just having a little bit of a check for how far down Wout van Aert has gone. It looks to me like the gap really has opened up now. We've got Van der Haar on the front, leading this out. Immediately behind is a bit on his wheel. You can just see everybody tracking smoothly around that left turn in towards the dead stop turn at the top of the bank. It's straight up and down the bank, in not a angled ascent or descent off these ramparts on this section. As the race normally we would be expecting just settling into some kind of rhythm on lap at number 1, but at the moment that's definitely not the case, as we see going through the windmill into the big descent. Lars van der Haar, somebody who is known for his descending skills. Well, you can hear the bikes bouncing about on the way down through there. And definitely taking its toll. Van Toren out up in the mix, right up with those front leaders now. You can just see chasing. That is Gus van der Meer in the yellow and blue immediately in front of Wout van Aert. So Van Aert at the moment is a fair way down this race field. He's currently sitting in 39th position and is currently 38 seconds down on the lead. So 38 seconds down, and currently having to push his way up. So a position and numbers well in excess of 30s. That means that Ali Isabit has got his wish. He probably wouldn't have wanted it to be quite in this way. As you can see, the riders coming through thick and fast now up in towards the big climb up the banking. So Toonet's currently in about 14th place, somebody who we had expected to figure perhaps a little bit further up. Van Kessel in 13th position at the moment, though Van der Haar, Isabit, Hermans, Van der Bosch, Baysteins, Van Torenhout, Pidcock, Speak, Camp and Murria, the top 10 as they come up over the top and head over the bridge here in Hulst. This not number 1 of the men's race here. We still wait to see exactly what lap time of these riders are going to set for lap number 1. The commentators will decide at the end of lap number 2 how many laps our riders are going to be doing. The lap time's pretty quick around here compared to yesterday, but these riders with a lot of racing in the legs, and yesterday was a very tough race. Words like sloggy, really heavy, real hard race were all being used by the riders today, much quicker underneath the wheels, except for those big run-ups. You can see that big diving bank. Most of the riders taking pretty much the same line at the moment. Trying to carry as much pace as we see Wout van Aert trying to make his way up through the race field. Last we saw, he was sitting in 38th. He's made a few more positions up to 36 last time check that we had. But he's going to have to let the race thin out a bit before he can start to make a lot of positions. Once the race starts to stretch, more gaps to jump in, easy to get around single riders. If it's all bunched up, much more difficult to make places. We're going to have to see whether the bike's in one piece as well, whether he changes it just to be on the safe side. So leading group just starting to form. We've got a 4 and a 3 at the moment. Then riders dotted individually. So expect to see a group form up at the front on this section. There's certainly plenty of chance to make your way back into a group. Just a little bit of scooting along there. That may well be David van der Poel just coming in, and already the glass is coming off and being thrown to one side here. Conny van Kessel currently sitting in 15th position. Wout van Aert moving up to about 35th at the moment, just on the heels of Clement Venturini, I think, just making his way around those turns. And these riders at the front have to make the most of this. This isn't a case of just sit back, do the gentlemanly thing. Keeping your bike in one piece, having a mechanically sound bike is all part of cyclocross. Now up onto the final bike before they come into the line to complete lap number 1. Most of the riders taking that right-hand line. It's smoother, it's faster, but it is more slippery as you come up the bank. And we've witnessed that already today. So it's going to be Van der Haar who leads this group of 4 in across the line, the chasing group of 3 behind. This will get a good indication of those time checks. So Van der Haar is with Hermans and Van der Bosch ahead of Pidcock, leading that chasing group with Van Torenhout and Vincent Baystains in there. So Baystains are currently sitting in 8th place in the UCI rankings overall. And he's a rider who we know has had a good season in the series in 10th position. And currently doing his best ride so far, his highest position so far, 7th place. So in the right mix as we see Wout van Aert coming in through underneath the clock as they go in underneath and through. So it looks like those two groups are just joining back together. Van Aert now up to what is 32nd according to our latest time chase out on the course. So still moving up through that race field, but the clock is showing, if it's currently correct, which I think it is, about 45 seconds down on our race lead. Just waiting for that to update completely. I think he's probably pulled a little bit more time back than that. Meanwhile, at the moment, you can see the leading group of riders are pretty much together as Lars van der Haar, just the back wheel sliding out to the right-hand side there. And this is the problem Van Aert has. It's so full of riders, it is going to make life very, very difficult indeed for him to move up through the field. He needs those open sections to be able to do so. Don't discount him from the race results. I don't think anybody's going to discount him from the race results just yet. So Lars van der Haar, Ellie is a bit Toon Van der Bosch along with Quinten Hermans, then Pidcock, Van Torenhout, Baystains, Sveek, Camp Muller, Bestring, then Dan Soet, Kevin Kuhn of Switzerland, currently top 15 in 14th place. Conny van Kessel from the Netherlands in 15th position. Looks like Cameron Mason on a good ride from Great Britain. The Brad, who's 3rd in the under-23 World Cup, which is a separate 5-round series, is now into 19th place, top 20. Ben Turner, his teammate, in 21st, sandwiching Thesaerts in between. So other riders who've been held up, who we've seen and featuring strongly, looks like Mies Hendricks, who had a good ride yesterday, maybe feeling the effects of 2 days on the bounce, in 26th position, just behind Thomas from the northeast of Great Britain, who's in 25th, and they're going to be seeing Wout van Aert any second now. They're right in front of him, and Wout van Aert back up into the top 30 riders, something you don't expect to say on commentary every day, it has to be said. But this is cyclocross, and this is what we love about it. It's so varied on the way through. Now, The riders on this descent, little bit of a gap starting to open up. Vincent Bainstain's potentially just starting to lose the wheel on the way through. I think that is going to make a difference as these riders continue. You can see Tim Murley on a good ride here as well. So Tim Murley just hovering around that top 10 mark. As we see Wout van Aert on the heels there of Rory Maguire, and that wheelbase kit, that's a green and black kit directly in front. And the youngster from the north of Scotland from Peebles just dropping down into that descent. As the leaders up on to the banking, you can see how much course you've got. That big descent from the windmill down to the moat side, right the way to the top of the climb. It's the difference between the first place and the chaser Van Aert. As Van Aert makes his way along the banking, our race leaders already well on the way back out from that section. So here we go, Ellie Isabeth now up onto the front, just moving in front of Lars van der Haar, and just keeping that pace out, just rolling around as van der Haar just drops into second place. You see all the riders behind having to slow down, just stall a little bit as they come in, taking that descent. Van den Bosch of the Paul Solzen squad sitting in fourth position, just going slightly higher on that drop down. But definitely a little slightly more hesitant approach being taken by the riders like Bainstein, who's just a little bit further back. So David van der Poel about to be caught by Wout van Aert a little bit further through that race field. Up at the front though, Ellie Isabeth starting to squeeze, starting to push the riders back. The natural compression and expansion every time we go through a technical corner means that the riders on the front able to push clear, start to squeeze out that gap, and that's what we're seeing now. It's not a full-blown attack at this stage in the race on lap number 2. Ellie Isabeth, then Lars van der Haar, Quinten Hermans, Pidcock and co. And just take a little bit of a look back down. You can see the amount of mud on him, and in fact having to kick out the mud out from his shoes. Those cleats all jammed up on his way through, but an experienced rider like Wout van Aert currently continues to squeeze 23rd place at the moment. He continues to make his way up and through. Just about to get onto the back wheel there, Thieses, as they come through now. That's expansion on compression off the top of the bank has meant that Isabeth has gone clear. He's been joined now by Lars van der Haar. The three riders behind chasing, knowing the gap, and the encouragement from the shouts at the side there as they come around the side. I think it was Lawrence Sweek just being told to get a move on and to squeeze back onto that group. They can't afford to let the gaps go with riders as talented as Lars van der Haar and Ellie Isabeth. They are two of the smaller, lighter riders. These big steep banks, if you're carrying a few extra kilos, it's going to take its toll on you every time it goes uphill. It's not a pure power, it's not just about torque and grit, it's about speed and being able to get up those banks really quick to carry that momentum over the hills, and being smaller and lighter generally gives you an advantage. And you can see at the front, you've got Ellie Isabeth, you've got Lars van der Haar, Pidcock currently in fourth position, sandwiched in between, and Quinten Hermans, who's not exactly a giant, as it looks like an issue for Van Toren out just on the top, stalling as he comes through. As the riders just a pause coming over the top of the bank there. Van Toren out, not able to get around the side, nowhere left to go as they come down onto the straight. This is going to be lap number 2 complete. 14 minutes of racing, 14.5 minutes of racing done as they come in through the line. So it's Ellie Isabeth leading them through once again. A little bit of a gap back to the chasers, the bigger gap back to Lawrence Sweek leading that group of 3. Sweek, Toon Aert, Bainstain's in there. Then it's going to be Ryan Camp, and as the group following being led by Tim Murray in that Alpecin kit. Just seeing Mason going through, being chased there. Looks like Ben Turner immediately behind the New Grenadiers signing. Then it's going to be Wout van Aert, but Van Aert has got company that you can just tell everybody has seen someone they want to get on the back of there. So it looks like we've seen Mason, Van der Poel, Turner, then Van Aert, Marcel Meissen. just sitting on the wheels of Van Aert, and if you're going to shelter behind anybody, you must shelter behind somebody who's going exceptionally quick. Van Aert clearly has the power and the pace. After that problem with the chain, that is what can happen to anybody during the ride, even to riders of Wout's caliber.
Quinten Hermans die blijft er goed bij, hè? Bij dat duo aan de leiding. Die is vinnig, venijnig.
So this chasing at the moment from Quinten Hermans. Hermans on a good ride here. Quinten Hermans certainly looking very, very strong this season. He had a win in the States at round number 2 over in Fayetteville, and has been consistently up there, which is why he's currently in 4th place in the series. 3 podiums so far this season. That struggles to close that gap back down onto the Lars van der Haart. Everybody breathing hard, and now Toonets on using this bigger flat section where he can get that power down to start to close the gap. Lawrence Speak and Basin is just distanced a little bit there by Toonets, who's trying to bridge back across to this leading group. Now Pidcock moves up on the right-hand side, goes over the top there of Quinten Hermans, but Hermans defends his position and doesn't want to let that go. It means Pidcock moving up into 4th position. Now, at the end of Namur on the double race weekend, where he'd taken a win on race number 1 of that weekend at Rucphen, Pidcock said at Namur on day 2 he didn't have the strength, he wasn't ready for a double weekend. Well, it's a double weekend this weekend. He was racing for that race win at Bar yesterday in a really tough, really hard race. He's up in contention now. Is he going to have found that strength as this season has gone on, as he's got himself back into riding cyclocross? He has had a little bit of a break over the Christmas period, but at the moment it's Ellie Isabit, long time the rider who was beating Pidcock in their formative years, and now on the front as they're going to go dropping down off that bank, and I think it's going to be Isabit who leads them down into the descent down to the moat. Van der Haart in 2nd place, Pidcock in 3rd place. So Toonets just dropping slightly wide on that corner on the exit of the descent there into that slightly deeper mud at the side. It's allowed a little bit of a gap to open up between Toonets and Quinten Hermans, as we see Wout van Aert, former world champion, now making his way into that same section. He's about to drop down that bank and coming out from the windmill here on the ramparts. Carrying a lot of speed, a lot of pace, carries him right into that banking. So the gap is still coming down, but definitely not going to be making his life easy as our leaders go up onto the top. Quick running by Pidcock there gets him up. And is he going to be able to go into the race lead there? So it looks like the British champion with the red, white and blue bands across his middle managed to remount first there. He's going to be the first off the remount on the bridge as well. So Pidcock in 1, Isabit in 2, Van der Haart in 3, all predominantly white kit, the red, white and blue. Ineos Grenadiers rider in 1, Pidcock 2, the series leader Palshausen rider. And that's Ellie Isabit, the back wheel sliding out with no problems for Isabit on his way down. Then he's going to be the Baloise Alliance rider. It's Lars van der Haart, European champion with those stars on his back. So we see the chase continuing behind our race leaders. So now Pidcock, Isabit and Van der Haart being followed by Toon, and then Van Toren out up onto the back. So Wout van Aert continuing to push behind, trying to get that gap down. He won't say he's done and dusted on his way through. Wout van Aert in terms of the series standings a long way down, missing all of the races. Only ridden, in fact, 2 races before. Now that's a preceding round at Dendermonde and at Val di Sole. He did kind of well. He won both of them. So he was probably expecting not to be chasing at this stage of the race, not enough after yesterday's race. But that is cyclocross, and that is quite often just about luck. It's about just where you end up pushed on those lines. Meanwhile, the push at the front continues with Pidcock continuing to keep that pressure squeezed on every time they come out from a compression. He's pushing on and extending that gap. It's not a conventional road attack where you go belting down the gutter on the opposite side of the road. It's a squeeze out from the corner that opens up the gap, that makes everybody work. Those repeated pushes, those repeated squeezes, what generally tends to open up those gaps just that little bit more. So a 9-lap race in total, currently on lap 3 of 9, 20 minutes of racing done so far, so should tick over the hour mark for the riders on the way through. Pidcock continuing to stretch the front of this race out. The two riders who've gone with him, Van der Haar and Isabit at the moment. Although that gap looks big, it is a fast section, of course, and that is where the gaps open. Once the time gap stays the same, the relative speed being higher, the distance between the riders is higher. The chase being led now by Toonets, turning up onto the top of the banking, carrying that momentum over, but see those bankings definitely not as easy for the big man as behind. Wout van Aert continues that push now. That little section through there, the rider who's on the back of the whip is going to be a little bit of a gap back now to Lars van der Haar. 4 seconds to Van der Haar. Now is Van der Haar going to go backwards into the group behind, 9 seconds to the group behind from Pidcock. There's only going to be 5 seconds from Van der Haar, and behind those groups are pushing now. Ellie Isabit along with Pidcock on the way up over there. Pidcock will be confident in his bunny hop in. We bunny hop to victory at Rucphen, and certainly looking smooth. Interesting still on one of the riders choosing to run that. Normally you'd only run that now if your shoes were causing you problems, if you had a lack of grip or it was incredibly muddy, you couldn't get that takeoff and landing. Now it looks to me like Cameron Mason still holding off Wout van Aert. Mason up into 16th place for the Trinity race team, and the rider who's third in the series standings in the under 23s. Well, he is currently just holding off Wout van Aert behind him as they come in through, and Van Aert still on that chase. He's going to have that character chase in the shape of a Mason. Mason and Pidcock former teammates, and Mason definitely being compared to our current race leader recently at one of the GB national races in the Star, with which he took the win. So definitely in good company around Wout van Aert, but our two riders, Pidcock has the company of Ellie Isabit, the two riders who've battled over the years so many times. Lars van der Haar just starting to be distanced a little. He's not going to panic. Experienced racer Van der Haar just coming down past Pete, seen quickly out the saddle, kicking down, just trying to get that pace back up as he comes out of that corner. So what you can't quite see on the camera is actually come through this pit. It's got a little bit of a step in it. It's only looks a little bit as this camera angle. Actually, it raises about a metre as you go off the bottom to the top. It doesn't sound a lot, but when you're on the limit, it definitely makes a difference in the pace. Pidcock at the moment is a bit keeping pretty smooth all the way through. Certainly look like they've still got plenty of spring in those steps as they come up that bank and up around the side of the defences now. Camber dropping away to the right-hand side. Van der Haar follows the track round. Meanwhile, Wout van Aert in the 17th position, 46 seconds down, not making too much headway in terms of time into our leaders at the moment, and it shows you normally how evenly matched the riders at the front of the race, people like Isabit, Pidcock, Toonets, are with people like Wout van Aert. So still that gap opening up behind Quinten Hermans. Looking like he's leading those chasers through. Pidcock down that descent is a bit in second place. He's going to come up onto that big bank, that big climb. Slower section, they come around this left-hand turn, and it's going to slow off this next section as they go around the side of the ramparts here. And this bastion stuck out into the moat, the bastion or star-style fortress here built in the 17th century, lending its banks now to the race here at Hulst. Hulst, of course, having to move home last year as it went across to Polder, back on its more traditional course here with the big banks after a couple of years, thank goodness, and great to be back on what has some of the best features. Great to see these banks. One of those big steep banks, almost reminiscent of the sandbank out of De Coyle at Zonhoven, just mud rather than sand, and there is less and less grass every time we see this bank. Most of the riders, though, taking the same line up at that right-hand side. In previous years, we've seen them slightly more spread out. Meanwhile, our race leaders keeping together as they drop around this turn, and definitely Picot looking slightly more comfortable than Isabit. Says Picot takes the tighter line, Isabit and Lars van der Haar there, both taking the slightly wider line, having to push that right leg out to get the balance just right. To the top of the bank goes Wout van Aert. He has company up there just in the shape of Ryan Camp on his right side from the Pals-Southens squad, but Wout van Aert in the Belgian national champions jersey continues to try and make progress. He's moving up through the race field, but he's not bringing down that time gap at the moment. So time splits at the moment. Picot and Isabit basically together. Van der Haar now sitting at just about 6 seconds or so back. Quinten Hermans 20 seconds leading the chase, 20 seconds down on our race leader. And you can just see Toon, even though he keeps pushing hard to try and stay at the front of this group, unable to stay clear. Just seeing the quick kick there. I think that was by... It's going to be Quinten Hermans just kicking this foot against the pedal, just trying to knock the mud out of the base of the shoe, trying to clear that cleat. The riders quickly through, up on to the rope now. Peacock out of the saddle very quickly. I think he's realised he's got a gap. Now this is an attack. This is the sort of sprint down the gutter that we would want to see in a road race. It looks like he's decided to open up the throttle a little bit here. He maybe senses that is in trouble a little here. He's realised the rider is slightly weaker. Peacock looking to take away a second win. So Tom Picot so far with a 8th place at Dendermonde. He had a second place at Namur, a 1st place at Rucphen, and a 3rd place that was in Val di Sole. So Picot looking to add to his first ever elite men's win. That's he's looking at Rucphen. He's going to be looking to do the same, going to take his 2nd win here today, but don't discount Isabit coming up behind him. It's a bit nice line up there, out of the saddle, pushing down on those pedals. Lap 4 about to be a complete 28 minutes of racing, so heading in towards that half-hour mark. And Lars van der Haar not out of the running at the moment. That's a gap to Van der Haar into double digits now, I think. So lap 4 complete, 28 minutes 17. The gap is a bit 3 seconds towards the gap back. It's definitely double digits here. This is going to take on. It is indeed 13 seconds and now back from our race leader into the barriers, into the planks, into the hurdles. Lots of different terms for what is one of the key skills now in the cyclo-cross race field. There was a time when 40-centimetre hurdles were considered an obstacle that was not always worth jumping. Now it's almost invariably a case that the riders will be bunny hopping and jumping them manually in the way over. It just depends on the style as they go through lots of different techniques used by the riders, depending on the speed and their skill levels on the way through. If like me, generally just end up smashing into them and coming a crop. And we still do see that it's the technical nature of the course before and after. It's muddy, it's slippery, or it's banked, or sometimes just because people tangle with each other. But look at this, Wout van Aert continuing to push and stretch up forwards. And to give you a reference point, he's now got about 6-7 seconds over Cameron Mason, the rider who he was with for a long time. So another push coming from Wout van Aert. But Ellie is a bit on your screens at the moment. So rider number 15 with that series leaders jersey chasing the British champion. It is Tom Peacock at the moment, who has the gap. So Pickup with that fastest lap time, 2.5 seconds quicker than Isabit as they go through a bit further down through those race first away from our two race leaders. Van der Haar in third place, currently at 14 seconds, 36 seconds back a group with Van Toren out as Hermans as well as Baystains in there. Speak a few seconds behind along with Van der Bosch. Wout van Aert now up to the top 10. 56 seconds down, and inside that minute, Kevin Kern from Switzerland on a great ride here, currently in 11th place. Then it's going to be Murray and Soot, followed by Mason. And they're 12th, 13th, and 14th. That takes you to 1 minute and 6. Verstringer, Orts from Spain, Turner, Hendricks, Van der Poel round out the top 20, and 1 minute 42 separating the top 20 riders at the moment as they come through. But Wout van Aert now up into what is a top 10 position as he makes his way down through the straight here. Back with the race lead. Pickup still in command. Is a bit dropping down that bank, just takes a little bit of a look down at the bank. The gap continuing to hold. It's not open substantially. Let's see what happens on this next section. Pickup carried a little bit more speed around these turns normally than we were seeing from Isabit in the earlier stages. Holding that faster upper line as much as possible as he goes in and along the bank in there. The next big group of riders. You can see that chase is on with Van Toren out and Co trying to make contact. Remember, sandwiched on his own in between Lars van der Haar has been in no man's land for some time now. He's currently sitting about 30 seconds up on that big chasing group. He's just coming into the bottom of the bank now as our race leaders have left the top of the bank with Pickup clear of Isabit. Van der Haar now on that steep ascent, making his way up onto the top of the rampart here on the inner defences here in Hulst. Clearly that section, of course, cutting up more and more as they go through. Michael Van Toren out, a rider who could have been challenging for that race win, currently in the company of Toon S. Right alongside him, you can see that we've got Quentin Hermans just coming across nearest to the camera. Feet up, and Hermans brings him up and bring him second place to come off the top of that climb. A little bit of gap starting to open up to people like Lawrence Sveek, and here comes Wout van Aert. So Van Aert now, he's on to the heels of Toon van den Bosch. A little look across there from Toon van den Bosch as he looks across at his countryman Wout van Aert. Van den Bosch in 9th place, Van Aert in 10th as they came into that bank. That position, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a reverse. Peacock definitely not holding anything back on that descent. Very quick down there. It's a bit doing the same, but not maybe carrying quite as much speed on these descents as a Peacock. Peacock, of course, a rider who we've known ride so successfully on the mountain bike on the road. So pretty good at tree planting as well. It's the tree planting scheme in his home city of Leeds as well, and definitely a rider who seems to be doing a lot more than just his standard riding. And of course, a rider who is now Tom Pickup MBE and awarded in the New Year's Honours list as well in Great Britain. So definitely a great season for Pickup so far. Is he going to continue that onwards with that win? He must know the gap is coming down to Wout van Aert behind him, but he's by no means going to have this gap down to 0 by the end. It's going to get very close indeed, though, I think, as Peacock continues to push now. That gap to Ellie is a bit of 4 seconds at the last time check. So Corny van Kessel decided enough is enough. I'm heading off. Time done. not to be my race today, so that is going to put a dent. Conor came into the race in 6th place in the series overall, so that is going to drop him down the standings substantially, because immediately behind him is Toon van den Bosch, who's having a great ride. He's well up inside the top 10. So on to the finishing straight. Go our riders that start finish straight here in Hulst in the Netherlands on the Belgium border, pretty much. The defensive fort on the edge of the Schelde River on the south side. Currently seeing Tom Pidcock looking to take away the win. Ali Isabit won't be concerned about him for the overall series. However, the overall series, Isabit is extending his lead over Michael van Toornout, Toonouts, Quinten Hermans, Lars van der Haar. In fact, it's van der Haar, the rider who's benefiting the most today. He's going to move up through those standings because van der Haar currently in 3rd position, and he will want to hold off that group behind. The group behind are all of the riders who are around him in that overall series. Ali Isabit, though, riding for the series overall, the World Cup series, making its way out and around the globe. Starting off in America, and we're going to finish racing with 2 more rounds of the World Cup. Our next 2 rounds coming up in Flamanville in France on the 16th of January and in Hoogerheide on the 23rd of January. Before that, most of the North European nations have their national championships, and at the end of it, we have the World Championship. So a critical period for these riders coming in to the end of the season. Who has gone too early? Who's got the right form? Who's managed to get that rest block in? Well, Van Aert and Co regularly off on training camps up in Calpe, and just getting the block of training. It's very, very hard to consistently train and race non-stop. Generally don't tend to make too many improvements just racing. You need those solid endurance blocks as well, and that's why we often see the riders going off and getting in some road miles. Pidcock getting a bit of a break at the early part of the season. Mark Van Aert doing the same, both starting their season late. And if you have just joined us and you haven't heard the news, if you've not watched anything or been on any social media feed to do with cyclocross or anything to do with cycling, you may have missed the fact that Mathieu van der Poel, the current world champion, the rider that has excited many and has so many fans around the globe, is now out of the season, potentially for the rest of the season. His physio saying that he won't be back riding until he is pain-free with a swollen disc in his vertebrae, and various speculation out there about why it is as bad as it is, or why the damage has been done and what has aggravated it. But he's definitely a flamboyant rider who gives it absolutely everything, whether he's on the mountain bike or on the road bike. We can only wish him well in his recovery and look forward to seeing him back racing again up at the front of the race. In the meantime, the riders making hay at the moment. Definitely Pidcock is a bit... Wout van Aert has been up till today when having a bigger problem he had yesterday. Yesterday it was a damage to his shoe. He lost the fastening and the shoe flopping about, but he couldn't bunny hop. He also then had to the shoe change by going into the pit. But of course, today a little bit more major. Jam chain lost a whole bucket load, so it's ended up at about 48 seconds down at the maximum. Has steadily closed his way down. From 38 seconds, bringing that down to 38th place, got himself up into the top 10. Currently, Wout van Aert riding 7th place, Hermans in 6th, Van Toornout in 5th. Those riders about a minute behind Pidcock at the moment. The rider nearest to Pidcock, well, it's Ali Isabit. The rider's just scooting along, pushing with that left foot, coming up into this big climb. So Pidcock over the top remounts here. Is a bit wide stance just to keep stability, just kicking his way up that slope. Back on the bike, still definitely got plenty of energy in there. And both these riders know it's only going to take a mistake by either one to seal their fate. They're going to want to keep it smooth on the way through, just a little bit of a wobble of the legs there by Pidcock, who's in front of Isbit, and this rider Lars van der Haar. Van der Haar going up onto the steps in the far top left of your screens, as we saw Pidcock dive around this bank, being followed this time. Looks like Isbit just taking that tighter line this time. The course will be drying out. We've seen no rain during the course of today. The more riders just rolling them down, those ruts starting to form more and more. A little bit of mud on the left forearm there of Lars van der Haar, and down his left flank as well. So definitely had a slide out at some point in the course from van der Haar. The left thigh, left shin, and left forearm. Not always the points we're looking for when they're putting the bike on their shoulder. It's definitely looks like he's had a tumble and a slide out. So Isbit still pursuing Pidcock, 5 seconds the gap at the last time check. A bit further back to van der Haar, 25 seconds down on Pidcock at the last time check we got. Well, smoothly through that section for Tom Pidcock, just watching the twist and the turns back up and up onto the power. Just keeping the throttle open, just really kicking on as they come through, and Pidcock now starting to lap riders here. The issue that the leaders have, if the pace gets faster and the gaps come down, the first lap of Pidcock's a 7:07, lap 2 7:06, lap 3 7:03, then a 6:51 when he went on the attack, at 6:59 last time through the line. It's a bit potentially slightly more consistent, a 7:07 to a 6:54. So fractionally more consistent, but the riders now starting to lap other riders out on the field, and this is where the backmarkers need to move out of the way. The 80% rule eliminates riders on the way through, in theory, as they come through the last corner prior to the finish line. You've got to be within 80% of the leader's time. So if the leader is doing 5 minutes laps, you've got to come around that corner within 4 minutes of the leader. If he's doing 10 minutes laps, it's within 8 minutes, and so on. Riders take it out, not a problem on lap 1. You're not going to lose, let's say, 8 minutes on lap 1, but if you lose 2 minutes a lap, 4 laps later, you're going to be taken out of contention, lose a minute a lap, etc. It soon takes its toll on the riders, and that's where you see the riders being eliminated, taken out of the screens. Now, our race leader, Pidcock, goes through at the end of lap 6 of 9. 2/3 race distance done, the gap of 5 seconds now, 6 seconds to Ellie Isbit. All right, in second place, the Penultimate rider there. These two riders have raced against each other so many times, and had the privilege of watching them, like many of you, I'm sure. Absolute avid fan of watching these riders in action, both in real life and on the screens as well as commentating. And I've got to say, it's been great to watch the battle between them over the years. Tom Pidcock at the moment in the ascendancy, definitely showing why he was always considered such a talented rider. Certainly a rider who's never been afraid to push it to the limit as the group behind just starts to fracture a little bit. Who's this in the distance? I think we need the Jaws music going here, because that is Wout van Aert, who is about to come around the corner there onto the straight. 2 nets to see the danger. He's decided he definitely needs a bigger boat, because he's off and away at the moment. Wout van Aert is in 7th place. He's where he was. He's 1:06 down on Pidcock. But more importantly, Quinten Hermans and Michael van Toren out are only 5 seconds in front. And that is going to send out the warning flares, definitely, because that is going to be a real worry for them. And you've got Wout van Aert closing down, and he's able to know how far back he is. He's now working his way through that race field. 1 minute and 6, third of the race distance to close that gap down. Pidcock's been at the front of the race, battling against Ellie Isbit and Lars van der Haar all race. Massive effort being put in by Wout van Aert, but is it going to be too much to ask for him to come back towards the end? How far up through that field can he go? Well, only time will tell. So Pidcock quickly up those steps, clips back in, quite a tight line out from that corner. Just watching Isbit, just drops just a little bit lower as Isbit comes round that corner, just making his way through, still holding 6 seconds, so one slip, one slide. He's not going to need a full submission to take Pidcock back into the clutches of Ellie. Is a bit behind Lars van der Haar on that same bank, comes into that run, just lifts the bike to the right-hand side there. And the Lars track line just jumps up on to the bike. Meanwhile, behind the Ineos Grenades British champion, Tom Pidcock leading that race out underneath the windmill and into the descent. That gap just growing and likely to grow slightly more on this descent, where Pidcock usually carries just that little bit more speed and takes that tighter line on his way through. Now, Ellie Isbit drops down into the bumpy, boggier, slightly rougher section on that wider, longer line. And that taking time, costing momentum, 6 seconds the last time gap. And what's that going to be as they come round? Remember, what's not shown on the current situation on your screen is that we've got Wout van Aert closing in on the heels of Hermans and Van Torenhout. Pidcock around that turn and on to the climb. You can see the course tapes, the netting and the mesh interweaving its way around these bankings, around these defences, as we see Wout van Aert about to make contact here. So Michael Van Torenhout, the rider who is in second place in the series overall, would have been wanting to keep as few people between him and Ellie Isbit. If Isbit was in front, he won't want Van Aert to come up in front. He may well have to just use him as a carrot to follow, as somebody potentially to break the wind if he catches them at the right time on one of the headwind sections. It is windy, 30 kilometers an hour wind. At times out there, 13 degrees the temperature, but the wind more problematic on some of the straights. They get caught at the right time. You may well be able to just take a little bit of shelter, gain some assistance from Wout as he comes through, but definitely the rider who's making the ground is Wout van Aert, but a long way to go to close down on any of the top three. Lars van der Haar, the European champion, just dropping down that right-hand turn, pushes that wide line and still right on the limit of grip. Pidcock in through over the sand trap, and that sandy ditch up here on the top of the banking as he goes through ahead of Ellie Isbit. Isbit, the World Cup leader, a great start to his season over in the States for the first 3 races. A rider who's been on the podium 9 times so far this season with 5 wins, 3 second places and a 3rd place. And he is a bit clearly the rider who has the top of the standings. Van Torenhout, well, he's been on the podium 7 times so far this season. And Van Torenhout doing a great job of trying to keep that gap to a minimum, but only 1 win, 3 second places and 3 thirds. Pidcock's history so far, well, Pidcock a first, a second and a 3rd place so far in what has been a much shorter season, as those 3 riders stay clear of Tunes. It's now starting to open the gap between himself and the chasers behind. So Hermans just taking a little bit of a look down at the bike there. Quinten Hermans in the bright yellow, blue and white, the Tormund squad behind him. Then it is Wout van Aert with Michael Van Torenhout, the 3rd of the riders in that group. They've got a 20-second gap on the next group of chasers, and the group behind just stretching backwards, I think, and losing ground now on the group containing Wout van Aert. So at that final bank before dropping onto the start-finish straight at the end of a lap 7 of 9. Pidcock last time through had a 6-second lead, Has he maintained that? I think it's going to have gone out once again as they come down to the line. It's yo-yoed a little bit out and round the course, but Tom Pidcock crouched low over those bars, hugging the right-hand barrier, going down that slightly bigger set of cobbles. You just see the wider, bigger slabs down in the gutter there compared to the main cobbled street here, just a little bit smooth, a little bit faster, plus adding the breeze that's blowing across, and all of the structures, things like the photo finish. You take as much shelter as you can coming down this straight, and definitely much better sitting on the right-hand side there. It's just a little bit quicker. Every single rider we see doing that if they can. Is a bit 9 seconds down. Van der Haar 30 seconds down. In third place, fourth place, well, not yet up over that bump. He's got the gap on Hermans, Van Aert and Van Torenhout. But fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh place riders now all on the way in towards that start finish straight at the end of lap number 7 before we go out on lap number 8 of now the penultimate lap here at Hulst, the UCI World Cup cyclo-cross race here. Third from last in our race series. 2 more rounds to go. Running into that critical period of the national championships for most of these riders. Got moving into that period where we have our last 2 World Cups and the World Championships that come up at the end of the month in Fayetteville over in the States. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that course has evolved. The organisers there hosting around the World Cup, in fact, round number 2 of the World Cup over in the States at Fayetteville, and definitely looking forward to seeing the changes and what we see happening with the riders, who's going to be on form at the end of the season rather than at the start of the season. Well, Kevin Kuhn doing a great ride here in the red, the Swiss rider, inside 2 minutes, trying to get onto the heels of Van den Bosch there behind Tim Merlier, Dan Soates. Then it's going to be Verstring and Mason. So Mason for Trinity, the old team of Tom Pidcock, our race leader, just being represented there by Mason, just knocking on the door of a top 15 position today as Pidcock continues to try and extend that lead over Ellie Isbit, the rider in the distance, coming back towards Pidcock here, just trying to close that gap down. A time check only at 8 seconds. It is yo-yoing a little bit, but overall going out by a few seconds each lap. So Pidcock quickly onto that descent. He is leading the race. Is a bit through underneath Wimble. The second of the riders down, it will be Lars van der Haar, who goes into that descent in third place, 31 seconds down, 1 minute and 2 back to Toon Et, who has a 10-second gap to Wout van Aert. Van Aert just starting to open the gaps on Quinten Hermans and Michael van Torenhout. So they start to get distance. Lawrence Fiek on a good ride, currently in 8th position. Not podium position, but right up there inside that 2-minute marker. He's got a 10-second gap at the moment on Vincent Bainstains and Toon of Van den Bosch. And it's Kevin Kuhn down so to Tim Bernier, Stringer Mason, with Turner, Orts, Camp, Hendricks and Venturini rounding out the top 20 at the moment. Our race leader, though, Tom Pidcock, top of the bank and pushing his way into Waterbridge. And once again, on this lap, we've seen starting to close down on lapped riders out on the course now. Lars van der Haar, that rut getting increasingly deep as you come around that turn there. The warm-up, it was only just over the tyre treads. It's dropped right the way down. It's definitely over the rims now as you come around that left-hand turn, not making it particularly any easier for the riders. So well done to our lap riders there. Definitely very gentlemanly behaviour. Moving out of the way to let our race leaders through. Not always possible for the riders if they're on a technical, very tricky section. There may well be one line, and that one line is the only one that they've got. They're definitely in need of using it. They won't want to take anything else, but you can see just doing a great job of moving it out of the way there. So it is one of the reasons the leaders are so desperate for clear. They need to just get around those corners to be able to choose their line. They don't want to get held up. It wouldn't be so bad if everybody got held up evenly, but that's not always the case, and races can be decided. And definitely the longer and the tougher the races, generally the more of the issues there are. And this is the World Cup. It's not just about participating, it's about getting that sort of race win. And Tom Pidcock looking to add to his tally by taking another win here today. The only man on the man most likely to take that away from him is currently going to be Ellie Isabit as Toon so looks over his shoulder. The Trek Valois rider takes a little bit of a look back. He can see Wout van Aert coming. This is an amazing comeback from Wout van Aert. We knew he was capable of it. It was how far he could get up, how far could he push. He's currently sitting in what is going to be 5th position. You can see 4th place in front of him. Then there's some big gaps between 4th, 3rd, 2nd and 1st. Toon goes round there, and a little bit of a hint of desperation there, quickly off the bike. And just the bike flakes about, maybe not as smooth as he'd want. Toon's shoulders rocking there. Well, Van Aert, I'll just have a little bit of a wipe on my face, take a little bit of a look over at the side, get a bit of breath back. Very different look to those two riders in their body language, their facial expressions that came through. Well, Pidcock out of the saddle there, almost the entire length of that straight, kicking down on those pedals, using his body weight to push it even quicker through this section, up onto the banking, hardly having to pause at all or do much in the way of correction as he comes up onto the top of the banking. He's a bit smooth as well, as you'd expect from the race leaders, but they're coming up towards the end of the lap. Pidcock that time just maybe stalling a little bit more than normal on top. That penultimate climb and bank up in towards the finish. Lars van der Haar currently sitting in 3rd place. He's 28 seconds down on Pidcock. He's got Wout van Aert chasing him. He's about 40 seconds behind, but at the moment our race leader comes through. The bell rings out. It is now a 1 lap to go. Lap 8 complete. Taking that lap at time. Going through very, very fast indeed. So you can just see a 7:08, almost identical lap time for both Isabit and Pidcock. 7:08 lap. So Pidcock leading. Isabit held at 8 seconds the gap, but not going out, not coming back down again. 1 more lap of the course here at Hulst to see if that's going to change. Lars van der Haar at 27 seconds down on Pidcock. 19 seconds down on Isabit. These are the two riders, Wout van Aert and Toon on the chase. Now, Toon looking for the overall series. He's 3rd in the series standings overall at the moment. It's 276 points. Michael van Turenhout, who's behind him, on 290 points, with Ellie Isabit at 375 points. It's 40 points for a win, 30 for 2nd place, 25 points for 3rd place, 22 for 4th, 21, 20, 19, 18, and so on. 1 point lost for every position after, so it pays to be right up in the top 3. Now, Wout van Aert is not going to challenge in the overall series standings. However, if he can get a podium, it's going to be a real bolster after what was a disastrous start to the race here. And that was going to be some comeback, but it's got to go round. Toon is not going to want to surrender those additional points needlessly. And 3 points between 3rd and 4th place might not sound a lot, but at the end of the standings, dependent on where Michael van Turenhout ends out, that is going to make a difference. At the moment, van Turenhout immediately behind Toon. So it is only going to be a 1 point gain by Toon if they are currently separated by 5th and 6th places. If Toon could get back up to 3rd place, that gap will grow a little bit more. And it could be at the end of the season with 2 more races left, that could be critical. But Wout van Aert now on the front with clear track in front of him. So into this last lap, Pidcock grits his teeth, takes a little bit of a look at the bike, that left pedal, not engaging in the not engaging in that pedal there as he went along that straight. He was looking down at it, just trying to clip it, trying to make sure it was clipped in properly. Now, if that is a persistent problem, that is going to hand the advantage back towards Isabit, who's chasing behind. Pidcock's going to want to try and make sure it's clear. He's not been stamping his foot on the pedal. That's usually a clear sign that it is jammed in. Just take a look as he goes down here. Down this straight, but certainly looks like he's got clipped back in. He's out the saddle, a sign that he's clipped back in again. He's going to want to be able to get good control. It's not just the power you get through, it's also the feel. Heels down as he comes down here. Great technique as he drops down there, keeping his weight back, keeping that weight low. Nice, is a bit, and just unclips his left foot. That then just slightly unweighting him, just not being quite as stable around that corner. It's going to be Lars van der Haar. Van der Haar in third place at the moment. That's a gap at 28 seconds to Pidcock. Pidcock has lost time. The last time check, it was 7 seconds. So it's come down from 9 down to 8, down to 7 seconds from Tom Pidcock to Ellie Isabit in this last lap so far. Well, we can just see Isabit just coming into camera shot at the base of this bank, and Pidcock's in front at the moment. He's not going to want to let this go at this stage. He's back on top. He can't afford to make a mistake. Neither can he back off too much and take too much of a safe line, because Isabit will close him down if that's the case. So you can just see here, Tom just having to scoot his way around that turn, just push his way and just drops out of that rut that has been developing to ride in towards the banking. And yet again, just another kick of that left foot as he comes round. It's not going to last long now. He's well into his last lap as he drops down there. That wasn't as controlled as we've seen him going around that outside turn. I think this is just starting to take its toll as we go in towards this, the last part of the last lap. Pidcock with that right foot out over the top there. Now, quickly out of the pedals, runs his way up this bank, and Isabit to make the most of this chance. He's got a limited amount of time to close that gap down. You can see Pidcock sprint his way out of there, takes a look down at the bike. He's not too covered in mud at the moment, but if he starts to lose confidence in there, he's not going to corner as quick. He's not going to be able to put that pace down. Isabit's got to make the most of this. He's got to push it, still at 7 seconds, so first to second place, next to nothing in it. Pidcock down that big descent, diving down there. No lack of confidence by Pidcock that time around down there. Whatever the problem is getting those pedals, he didn't think about it on the way down. Isabit comes around, just missing that padding on the inside of the bend. Now racer leader quickly over those, but you just see that bike rattling about underneath him as he keeps it nice and smooth around. He's got to carry that pace round and onto the bank, which he does so. Ellie is a bit not giving up on this. He knows we can keep that pressure on. He's going to have him in trouble now. Pidcock not going in for a bike chase, not changing kick, carries on. So clearly looking to keep that into the finish. He gets the applause. The team's in at the pit, as does Ellie Isabit as they come through. The only applause here today coming from the crew, the teams, the riders and families, because there are no spectators here. It's a behind closed event for this season, but we are back on the proper Hulst course rather than the podium last year. So the then seeing Tom Pidcock back on this course and backing up for that race win, leading the race out at the moment on the final sectors of the last lap. That gap still holding. In fact, I think he's stretched out the last time check, showed us 10 seconds. It could well be that Pidcock has done enough, and Isabit knows he's in. It's going to have to settle for a second place here today at the World Cup. The UCI World Cup comes to Hulst, third from last round, with 2 more rounds left to go. But this man, he's on form. It wasn't to be a win yesterday at Bâle. He's going to make it a win here today. Tom Pidcock, the British champion, takes the win here at Hulst at the UCI World Cup. His time 1 hour, 3 minutes and 49 seconds. He attacks clear of this man, the series leader, who extends it up at the front, the Pals bingo rider, Ellie Isabit. Our series leader takes second place and will extend his lead at the top of the series standings. So it's going to be a third place for our European champion, Lars van der Haar of the Belgian squad. Comes in through the finishing line, in contention for so long. 33 seconds down at the end. Not to be a winner today. And our next riders are making the way in to Waterloo line. Is it going to be, well, have we missed it in between, just taking a track back on the cameras, but I think it is going to be Wout van Aert who's going to take this. He's got the gap on Tunerts. Here comes Ertz into the banking. So Tunerts, very tired Tunerts on the bank. It's going to be fourth place today. What could have been for Wout van Aert to continue his winning streak if he had not had that issue with the chain right on the start of lap number 1. An amazing comeback, but finishes tellingly 1 minute and 9 seconds down on Tom Pidcock, our race leader. It's going to be a fifth place today for Tunerts of the Baloise Trek squad. A good ride by Tun, up in contention, and he is going to sit very close, or a little bit closer at least, to Michael Van Turenhout. Is making his way into the line of the road, who's second place in the standings. Tunerts in third. Van Turenhout should retain that second place, and it should be Ellie Isbit in the top spot in those series standings. Quinten Hermans, another rider with a good ride and a solid season so far. Not long for these riders to round that season out. And Lawrence Fick clearly back in the right region. 8th place today for Lawrence Fick, just inside that 2 minute marker. Immediately behind him, it's going to be Vincent Baines who comes through just ahead of Tuna van den Bosch to round out the top 10 here today. All the riders stopping the watches as they come in and through the line, immediately behind Dan Sout. And then I think it's going to be our Swiss rider, Kevin Kern, going to be just outside that top 10 in 12th place. And going to ride by the Swiss man here today. And our riders going to be looking to move forward as they go on to their national championships, as well as moving on to the last 2 rounds of the World Cup and then on to the national championships. So it looks like Verstringer takes 14th, Cameron Mason taking 15th here today. And might be mistaken, but I think that is Mason's best ride so far at a World Cup, Elite Men's World Cup. I stand to be corrected on that one. Well, Tom Pidcock taking the race win here today. An amazing job done by the Ineos Grenadiers already. His second win of the World Cup. So great ride by Tom Pidcock here today. His second World Cup win, and he's pushing all the way to the line. Let's hear from Tom Pidcock, who's down for an interview.
Tom Pidcock, many congratulations with your second win of the season. It was a great battle in between you and Ellie Isbit once again.
Yeah, I was feeling good at the start, and I pushed on, and I got a gap, but only literally a few seconds, and then all race Ellie was just keeping me close and keeping the pressure on. And then the last few laps started making a few mistakes, and I was thinking, if he does a big effort, maybe he could close. And then the last lap, I couldn't get my big ring. And I was like, oh.
But that's the reason why he came a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I mean, it was not too much of a problem, but I was just taking a bit easier on the descent so it wouldn't come off. And yeah, I was just a bit being a bit cautious because, well, I think Wout's chain came off, didn't it, as that? So, I didn't want that to happen.
What does this mean for you? You're becoming closer and closer to the Worlds, and this is your real peak. You want to become world champion. Do you think this will be the battle at the Worlds as well?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, for sure, I was pretty strong today. I mean, yeah, when you do whole race in front, it's completely different to when you're in the wheels and things. So yeah, it was a good result really.
What's next?
I think Gulligam and Herentals, and then I go training camp.
Okay, wish you all the best. Many congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Pidcock.
So great to hear from Tom Pidcock there, our race winner here in the medieval city of Hulst. And great ride by him. Interesting to hear him say that he was finding it different on the front of the race all the way, because he has traditionally started a little bit further back. And of course, to lose your big chainring, well, it didn't seem to make too much difference to him. He was maybe just being a little bit more circumspect that he didn't try changing it and losing the chain, because that would have been disastrous at that stage. But an experienced rider for one so young, and interestingly, a training camp before they go into the Worlds. So the usual frantic start here at Hulst in the Netherlands for the UCI World Cup men's race, with Lars van der Haar leading the race out. Immediately behind him, one long train of riders. Kevin Kuhn trying to move his way up and through. Congestion though, with riders slipping out on the corner Van Kessel finishes. But then Wout van Aert with a major problem. A jammed chain in between the frame and the chain rings, bouncing off on the slight uphill up on the bank and causing him to lose a substantial amount of time. It meant that the race leaders could continue to push on, with Lars van der Haar, our early leader, really stretching the race out. Wout van Aert caught in traffic down as low as the late 30s, meant that as our two race leaders started to go clear, Tom Pidcock and Ellie Isabit, and start to break clear of Lars van der Haar, Wout van Aert was left chasing, working his way through the race field. Pidcock put the pressure on, started to stretch out from Isabit, and sensing a weakening in Isabit, put in a kick that was to take him clear the gap as he attacked and went out to 7 seconds, and that was where it stayed for most of the race, with that yo-yo between 6 and about 8 seconds behind. Wout van Aert continued his chase up through the field, eventually catching 4th place to S. However, it was Pidcock who stayed clear to take the race win, his 2nd World Cup win. Ellie Isabit, the series leader for the Powell's Southern squad, coming through and extending his lead at the top of the series standings, with Lars van der Haar putting in another podium performance, taking 3rd place. A great ride by him out on this course at Hulst. So the results subject to confirmation. Tom Pidcock taking the win from Ellie Isabit, Van der Haar in 3rd, Van Aert in 4th, Etz in 5th, Van Torenhout in 6th, Hermans in 7th, Spiek in 8th, Bainstains in 9th, and Toon van den Bosch rounding out the top 10, with the Brits Pidcock and Van der Haar from Netherlands, the only riders up in the top 10. So our riders coming through, let's hear from our World Cup leader, 2nd place rider, Ellie Isabit.
Ellie Isabit, proficiat. De wereldbeker is binnen. En je had daar denk ik heel graag nog een overwinning bij gedaan. Het was heel nipt, moet ik zeggen.
Ja, we bleven altijd hetzelfde tempo rijden. Het was heel moeilijk om nog sneller te rijden op dit rondje. En ik verloor wel iets in het lopen, vond ik. Mijn lopen was niet super. Was wel jammer.
Ja, 4 seconden, 5 seconden, 6, 7. Het bleef daar omspannen. Hè? En hij maakte geen enkele fout daarvoor. Had je daar stiekem op gehoopt?
Ja, toch ergens wel. In de laatste ronde kwam ik nog heel dicht voor de laatste looppassage. Maar dan was het beste er ook af. Dus ja, het was wel van in het begin hard tegen hard. Dus het was jammer dat ik het wiel verloor. Want denk moest ik het wiel kunnen houden, dat het toch net iets spannender ging.
Ja, wil je een statement maken ook, als winnaar van de wereldbeker, door hier Pidcock te kloppen?
Ja, dat wou ik. Dat wou ik. Allee, ja, maakt niet uit wie dat is. Hè. Winnen is altijd belangrijk. Ik ben blij met mijn vorm nu en hopelijk kan ik op de BK ook een mooie wedstrijd rijden. Dat is toch wel heel belangrijk. Dus de wereldbeker kun je wel afvinken en nu kan ik misschien naar het WK toe nog wat extra rust nemen.
Ah ja, dan kan je links of rechts een cross laten vallen natuurlijk.
Ja, inderdaad. En misschien iets vroeger naar Amerika vertrekken, nou, wie weet. Dus de opties zijn, er zijn veel opties.
Many congratulations with your win in the World Cup. What does this mean for you?
It's very important. I'm aiming for this for 3 years already. So the last 2 years were just not yet, and it's always difficult for me. But I'm happy to win a new World Cup with a lot of races, and I think that shows my consistency.
Do you think it will be the same battle at the Worlds in Fayetteville in between you and Tom Pidcock.
I hope so, and I hope that the result will be
Different.
different than today.
But you have an advantage. You can skip some races right now.
Yeah, I think so, and maybe I can go a little bit earlier to America to have more time to get over the jet lag. So there's a lot of options for me.
Okay, thank you very much. And many congratulations with your win.
Great to hear from Ellie Isbit, our race winner, taking that win at the lead. So let's hear from the man who was in that battle all the way through, Lars van der Haar for the Netherlands, one of only 2 riders in the top 10 to break that Belgian dominance.
Dag Lars, dat ging goed vandaag. Alleen gingen er 2 nog net iets sneller daar voorin.
Ja, dat is het foutje van de eerste 2 rondes op kop rijden. Hè. Maar ja, ik wilde sowieso goed starten om in ieder geval niet in de problemen te zitten.
Ja, dat heb je gedaan. Goed gestart.
Ja, nou ja, dan ben je mee. Alleen, ja, ik wist dat het dan moeilijk zou worden als we zouden overnemen. En dat was helaas ook.
Ja, het ging enorm snel hè, toen Pidcock daar nog eens aan zette. Probeer dat moment eens te beschrijven.
Oh, dat weet ik niet meer, joh. Ik heb het gewoon afgezien. Ik voelde gewoon op een gegeven moment dat het voor mij moeilijk was. En Eli kon ik nog wel volgen inderdaad. Maar ja, toen Pidcock overnam, ging het tempo nog eens een keer iets hoger. En dat was er voor mij te veel aan.
Ja. De Nederlandse kampioenschappen zitten er aan te komen. Dat is hoopgevend voor jou met deze vorm.
Ja, het is een stuk beter als vorige week. Ik vind de benen weer een beetje terug en ik heb er ook weer zin in en dat is ook belangrijk.
Now, what does this third spot mean for you?
Actually a lot, especially after last weeks where it wasn't really going my way and I was mostly mentally not in the best shape and I found myself back a little bit and I hope I can take this shape to the next races.
Yeah. You have a kind of kinesio tape at your knee. Could your knee handle the race?
Yeah, in the race I have no problems at all. It's just endurance training. That's the most problem, and with this tape it helps a little bit against the pain.
Okay, wish you all the best at the National Championships. Thank you very much.
Well, Lars van der Haar, the European champion, riding through that pain and keeping on form into the Worlds, really critical. All of our riders really focusing on going forwards. Ellie is a bit looking like he is the man with the most time to prepare. Tom Pidcock clearly back on form, going to be racing his way into a training camp and taking the race win here from Isbit van der Haar van Aert as the top 5. That's great riding throughout that race field. Good to see Mason and Turner on form. Ryan Camp putting in another good riding. Clement Venturini inside the top 20 with Kevin Kuhn in 12th place, the best of the Swiss. Michael Burstrom, the Czech Republic, 22nd place, and Marcel Mason right behind him from Germany. Looking a little bit further down, noticed Scott Funston just ahead of Kerry Werner from the United States, still on that same lap though, which is a real good sign. So you go in towards the Worlds, but the pace of our race leaders, you can just see how many riders were at 1, 2 and 3 laps on this tough course here at Hulst. In fact, so we work our way down through the huge volume of riders here today, 76 entries. You could see that the loss of those riders, Conor van Kessel, did not finish after that issue out on the course. So really interesting result today as we run in towards the World Championships. A great race up at the front of the race and very intriguing watching just how close Ellie Isbit and Tom Pidcock are to each other. So our riders finishing their media duties and making the way towards the podium for presentations here in Hulst, the medieval city home to the UCI World Cup. And great to see all 3 riders really looking forward to what's coming up in a very packed part of the season. With coming up, of course, next weekend, National Championships. It's the Dutch National Championships, the Belgian National Championships, the British National Championships coming up next weekend. We have, of course, then 2 World Cups, and there are all the other continental races packed in before we get to those World Championships. A critical period for these 3 riders.
After the race today, organized over here in Hulst, Netherlands, for the UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup. Op de derde plaats eindigt, samen met al die wedstrijden. waarin hij uiteindelijk weer op het podium belandt als regerend Europees kampioen. Derde plaats en uw applaus voor Lars van der Haas.
So third place for the European champion Lars van der Haar here at Hulst.
Er is ook nog een trofeetje vanwege de stad Hulst. Allemaal bestemd voor de man op het podium. Ook voor deze nummer 3, Lars van der Haar. Proficiat. Wat hebben wij met volle teugen genoten van dit duel die we vandaag voorgeschoten kregen. Het duel uitgevochten tussen de uiteindelijke nummers 1 en 2 in deze wedstrijd. Wat een cross, wat een wedstrijd en wat een knappe tweede plaats voor deze man. Uw applaus voor Elie Iserbiet.
So Elie Iserbiet taking second place here at Hulst after that race-long battle, being up the front of the race, battling against the man who took the eventual race win.
After the win in Rucphen, he won it today also. Uw applaus voor de winnaar. Tweede World Cup overwinning dit seizoen voor Tom Pidcock.
So Tom Pidcock takes his second Elite Men's World Cup win here at Hulst in the Netherlands. A great result for him on the back of a very busy race period.
Well done, guys. Congratulations for the best three today in this race. Lars van der Haar die derde geworden is, Elie Iserbiet. And in the middle, after his second World Cup win this season, the winner of the day, Tom Pidcock.
So Tom Pidcock taking the race victory, a great weekend for him, and standing throughout that national anthem, honoured in the New Year's honours list with an MBE, joined on the podium by Elie Iserbiet second and Lars van der Haar, the European champion, in third place. Great racing by our riders on the course, a great battle, and it sets up our
official UCI representative. Mathematische zekerheid na vandaag. Hier staat dus de eindwinnaar van de Wereldbeker veldrijden 2021-2022. Applaus voor Elie Iserbiet, Mr. World Cup. Proficiat. Wij zijn aan het eind gekomen van de vestingcross in Hulst. Wij danken u voor het opvolgen van alle maatregelen. Jammer genoeg was het zonder publiek te doen. Hopelijk gaat de tijd snel keren op dat vlak.
So great to be here in Hulst. Make sure you watch the remaining two rounds at Flamanville and Rucphen of the UCI World Cup. We'll be back with more.